what we have in the example code is we have a function for get integer in range, which takes a min year and a max year, min val and max val, and also just a regular get integer, which doesn't take any range arguments. And then we built get integer in range on top of get integer. So that's not terrible, but wouldn't it be cool if instead we had get integer and then it had some optional parameters? So I could call it like, let me do some examples here. I'm going to change my main to not call main, and instead I'm going to print get integer, and we'll start with the standard case. Please enter a year. And then let's say that I wanted to also support, please enter a year between 1914 and 2015. And then this is going to have, see, greater than or equal to is GE equals 1914. And I think I got these backwards. I think it should have been 1915 and 2014. So greater than or equal to 1914 and less than or equal to 2014. So these are keyword arguments that I'm specifying, and they're optional. So I can either leave them out, in which case it will use some defaults. In this case, I'm going to ignore the range, or I can specify greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or I can say like, please enter a year after 1960. And this one is going to have a GT equals 1960, but no LE or LT. And then please enter a year before 2022. And that will be less than 2022. So there are all of our cases. So I give it a prompt, and then optionally a GE or a GT, and or an LE or an LT. So everybody clear on what the interface is going to be like for that? So I just have one get integer function, and it either takes a range or doesn't take a range. And then if I run this code, the first one works fine. And then I get an error because got integer got an unexpected keyword argument GE. So I need to know how to deal with these optional keyword arguments. And the way you do that in Python is by specifying a value in the parameter list. So this thing here is called a parameter list. It appears in the def statement after the function name, and it shows what gets passed into the function. So right now, prompt is a positional argument. So if I put like prompt, comma, A, comma, B, comma, C, these are all positional arguments, first, second, third, fourth. And then when I call get integer, I specify values, which are also called arguments. I specify values that get passed in order. So if I tried calling this now and I only passed in a prompt string, I would get an error that I had the wrong number of positional arguments. So let's go ahead and run it. And sure enough, I get integer missing 3 required positional arguments, A, B, and C. So I passed in the first one, but I didn't pass in the other three. And I could fix that by doing, you know, whatever. So now it'll work because I have the right number of positional arguments. And then it dies because I got an unexpected keyword argument GE later on, but we'll get to that. So I can have any number of positional arguments, and then I can also have keyword arguments, which I designate by specifying like GT equals and then a default value. So this says that if I put in a value for GT, that's what GT is going to be inside of here. And if I don't put in a value for GT, if I don't specify it, then it's just going to have the value none. And so I can print, do prompt, and then we'll do GT is GT, and we'll do GE is GE, and we'll do LT is, let me get these colons right, LT, and LE is LE. So I'm just going to print them for now. And I'm going to specify GT is none, GE is none, LT is none, and LE is none. So now if I run it, so the first thing it says, please enter a year. And then I'm not passing in any of these optional keyword arguments. So it's asking me, please enter year, and I type 1962. And then it goes to the next one. And the next one specifies a value for GE and for LE, but not for GT or LT. So I say, see, between 1914 and 2014, say 2000. And then this one just specifies a GT parameter, so greater than 1960. That would be 1961. And this one just has LT, so 2021, and so on. So everybody clear on how the keyword argument is working there and how it has a default value if I don't specify it, and otherwise whatever I pass in, that's what it gets. Okay. Now, I said before that this is a positional argument, and it is, but you can also supply values for positional arguments using keywords in Python. So for example, I can say prompt equals that, or I can just rely on the position. So let's go ahead and do that one here as well. So this first one, I'm specifying prompt. First two, I'm specifying prompt, and the other, I'm just using the fact that it's in the first position. And it all works the same. So all works perfectly fine. I get prompt for prompt in each of these. And in fact, if you go ahead and use keyword equal value, you can put these in any order. Position doesn't matter for keyword arguments. So this should work just the same. That's the second one. And you'll see for the second one, my prompt is correct, even though I put it third in the list instead of first in the list, because I specified the keyword. Okay, so now in terms of the actual logic, what I would do to make this work is something like, I'll do some of the cases. So inside, so I have my try loop, I got the value. Here, I want to check for specific cases. So like if, let's say GT is not none, that means they specified it, then, and let's say if it's not none and let's say value, so I have to actually think here. So I want to catch when they've entered an incorrect value, and that means that it's either equal to GT or less than GT. And so that would be val less than or equal to GT. That means it's invalid. So I want to write value must be greater than, and let's format a string here. So the first one always takes more work. So value must be greater than GT. So there's my error message. And then I want to continue to immediately return back to the top of the loop. And then, so that was the hard one. And then this one is easy because it's just greater than or equal to instead. And then here I just use less than, and it must be greater than or equal to that. And then this one's going to be less than. So that's going to be that. And value must be less than LT. And then this one's going to be LE. And if this is too fast for you to follow, it's too fast for me to follow as well. I'm just basically doing pattern matching and replacement. And hold on, I just lost my, I accidentally switched keyboards in the middle of that. So, okay. So I'm not actually thinking any more than I have to, and then I'm going to test it and make sure it works. Okay, but I think I hit all the right patterns, so let's go ahead and try it. And actually, let me kill the old one. Let me run it again. Okay, so this didn't have anything specified, so it should be no error checking. So this one should be greater than or equal to 1914 and less than or equal to 2014. So that would be less than, I'm sorry, if I do less than 1914, that should flag an error. So 1913 should be an error, and it is. Value must be greater than or equal to 1914. And then 2015 should be an error, and it is. And then it should accept 1914, and it did. And then please enter a year after 1960. So if I enter exactly 1960, that should be an error. But if I enter 1961, that should get accepted. And then a year before 2022, so 2022 should get rejected. And 2021 should be accepted. And it is. So this all seems to work, including the case where I didn't specify it at all. So the good news here is that I don't need to have a separate get integer and range anymore, because that functionality has now been baked into my get integer function. And here I'm going to call get integer. And this doesn't take an error message anymore, so that's okay though. But I want this thing to be greater than or equal to 1915 and less than or equal to 2014. And I guess I can just, well, I'll just do that, fine. And then let me call this again here. I'm sorry, having a day. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and call my main instead, and it should continue to work. Oh, and I want to get rid of that debugging output. So let's comment that out. Okay. 1914, 1915, male. All right, so that worked. All right. Now, in terms of what will cause errors, so failing to supply positional arguments, we saw will cause an error. So print get integer, like so. That will cause an error because I failed to supply a positional argument. So missing one required positional argument prompt. And then if you have keyword arguments, they have to be specified after your positional arguments. So this will work. That will work. So that worked. This will not work. So this is an error because I have a keyword argument being supplied before a positional argument. And the error I get is positional argument follows keyword argument. So that is not allowed. However, so this is not allowed. Not allowed. Not allowed. This is allowed, though. And we saw this before, but. So this is just two keyword arguments, and so that's perfectly fine. Okay, so if you have any positional arguments, they have to be specified before the keyword arguments.